So up next, ladies and gentlemen, another interesting panel discussion coming your way. And in today's digital era, content and marketing are absolutely pivotal in building enduring brands. Our next discussion is centered on the evolving role of content and marketing, brand building to DhandaFirst, which will explore the latest trends and strategies that are driving this transformation. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this panel discussion, Biren Ghose, Managing Director at Technicolor. A round of applause, please, for Biren Ghose. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear you make some noise. I know it's just about tea time, but I'm sure you can put your hands together and welcome our panelists. I'd also like to welcome to the stage, Neeraj Roy, Managing Director at Hungama. Let's have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Neeraj Roy. And please keep that applause going for Shibu, Shivanandan, Founder and Managing Director at Havas Media, India. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'll hand the stage over to you all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're here for understanding what's going to happen next in the stories that you tell about yourself, your future, your brands, and your families. I'm not going to spend time on the introduction. I'm going to let each person just very briefly say who they are, what they do, and the opening comments on how do you create Dhanda first through the power of communication. The two gentlemen with me are people that are well known both individually and through the brands that they have curated and the brands for other people that they curate. And therefore, there is a connection with each and every one of you. How many of you in this room are storytellers? Put your hand up. Okay, the rest of the hands will go up at the end of this session. 30 minutes from now, you will be a storyteller. So I'm going to start with my old friend. We're both very young, but we've known each other for all that time. It's Neeraj Roy, and he has been a person who's been able to see how stories connect businesses with businesses, stories connect businesses with people, and how stories connect people with people. So if we can start with you, what are we doing here at TiEcon, and how do you bring all that experience to see what we have to explore in the next 30 minutes?
Sure, thanks Biren, and wonderful to be here. We were 7 of us about 25 years ago who were the original signatories to TiE in Mumbai. So it's always coming back to a TiEcon is something very special. I look forward to that, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I think in the interest of brevity, I'll basically just say that look at this as three things, content, community, commerce. If I look at the last 10 years, we've seen the biggest democratization of creators. You started off by asking questions, and I thought you saw almost 30-35% people saying, because technically we're all creators of content. You may choose to post it in a particular way, but even when you are crafting that little message in a family WhatsApp group, you are in that state of mind. The second part being that content itself, its form factor, has been changing into more and more of a format whereby you can sort of start building communities with it. And the third big component, till now, we were largely, the content that was done with the intention of creating an audience, having an audience, and there was a burst, which is why in the era that we've grown up on, there was this whole theme around prime time. We did things around prime time. And really, prime time now is my time, because I could be sitting at 1 in the morning and binging something all the way till 6. And during that same process, in the last 2-3 years, we've started seeing the nudge towards commerce as well. So, in a nutshell, the broader media entertainment economy, which today sits at, say, maybe about 3.5 trillion out of 105 trillion global ecosystem, is very rapidly becoming a part of the commerce economy as well, because every little action from just the community, you'll be able to lead to transaction, and I'd love to talk more about it as we go forward.
Thank you. I'd just like for you to make the opening comments. And if I may, how are the brands you work with, how are they adapting to the shift from what was traditional to what is digital? And where is kind of real-time playing a game in this? And I think that there's a lot of research booklets I saw in your stand. What do you do with those reports? You create those reports, of course, but what does that tell you about how to do the next thing at Havas?
So I'll start with of how I have seen the industry evolving from a long form content to currently where we are, right? It's a snackable, quick, interactive format, as I may call it. Traditionally, there were banners. Now you look at what kind of content are the creators creating. They're very short form. They're very conversational. They are very commercial in nature, and and I think that is where the shift is also happening. Brands are opting for shorter, snackable content pieces, a storytelling format that can say the brand story from one content piece to the other, as opposed to what used to happen earlier, where there was longer formats, right? And what has also changed is how data and AI is playing a very crucial role in terms of understanding who the audiences are, what kind of content consumption will be more relevant to that audience, what kind of products can we personalize and throw the ad accordingly. That is where I see that evolution happening from probably a couple of years to now. And I think data and AI, as it being the buzzword, I think it really helps a marketer or a brand really understand who are the specific audiences, what communication, at what frequency. Those are some of the things at a scale AI can do it very well. So I think it's a combination of content, a snackable, smaller, interactive content, understanding the audiences, using data and AI to efficiently reach out to the specific user with the right content. I think that's where I see the shift happening right now.
Thank you. How many of you here are B2C, have a focus on B2C? How many are B2C? Few. How many are B2B? The rest are not awake. Perfect. It's more B2B. So let me just tell you that I've run 4 brands in the last 15 years. One of them is MPC, that creates the large, long-form movies and television, right? And as much as snackable content is growing, you cannot build a franchise unless you create something, like the Disneys do, like the Sonys do, etc. That's one end of the spectrum. This is the other. So we actually, if you look at something like Mufasa on screen today, it continues the Lion King legacy. $750 million in the last 6 weeks that it's been out, right? Entirely done by. On the other hand, we have The Mill that produces 2,000 pieces of short form for Meta, for anyone who's seen an Apple ad or whatever. And that's a very different story and a different skill set, because short form storytelling is a completely different skill set.
Yes.
And requires a different type of thinking. So for example, when people make a video game, when people make a video game, they spend $100 million in there. But when they need to create a trailer, they will come to The Mill. Because the way to tell a story about a story is also something that requires an expertise. I think that's very important here. because people here who are in different businesses still need to tell their story as a game publisher would or as a movie producer would. I think that's a very important skill set. And then finally, I think in the course of what we are seeing happen, we are seeing animation that is a more durable form of storytelling. So I think we're covering different things, and the skill sets that are coming together are creating one thing that everyone on this stage and everyone in the audience needs to understand. We're in an age of immersion. In the past, stories were told. In the future, stories will be lived. So anything that any of us do is to make sure that the person can be within that story, whether you're a brand, whether you're creating early stage, late stage. So Neeraj, I want to come to you because you've been a player in that whole space around the different things that you've done for a brand, from an age-old one little ringtone on a phone to today Web3 and everything else. How is this space, how are we seeing this space straddle the world of brands, and how can the audience here capitalize on that experience?
So I'll kind of build upon what you were leading to, which is immersive form of storytelling. And I'll try and sort of deconstruct this for the benefit of the audience so that you can really hopefully take from there. See, when you look at content, we have largely been accustomed to consuming content in 4-5 formats. The most basic would be text, a message on WhatsApp or whatever it may be. Another format could be images, it could be audio, it could be video, it could be a more interactive form like gaming. And from there it goes into more immersive forms like AR, VR, sort of mixed reality, extended reality of sorts. So for starters, I visualize that consumers will move from one to the other, visualize a cube of sorts. You're listening to something, you could from there itself move into, a world of video. What you're watching could lead you into a demo of something you're working around. You could then, from there, go into a more immersive form if you had external gadgets, etc., to facilitate that. The point is that I don't want to make this sound too geeky. It's like, what is it that you can do now? To me, for that, already the process, what Shibu referenced, see, last 3 or 4 years, the biggest shift that has come in our world has come from the space of AI. And the leading platforms have themselves enabled tools which are driving performance marketing into kind of what you call as ROAS, which is consistently, they're focused on increasing it across categories. So it doesn't matter what category, whether you are B2B, B2C, whatever, the first thing I would suggest is immerse yourself into digital media. Make an experiment with that. You don't feel intimidated by it because everything is already there. These platforms have tools. They will create those ads for you. They will then give you ways to measure that. Of course, there will be insights which come from your own experience. And from that process, what you are now suddenly doing is you have the ability to make every screen become alive, like a screen for engagement, a screen for communication, a screen for commerce. How many of you, say at 11, 12 in the night, you're browsing your phones? Can you just a show of hands, okay? How many of you, just in the last 1 year, have ended up making a transaction? You've bought something probably at 11, 12 in the night, There you go. That was not planned. Now, coupled with this, you align to another big movement, which is called quick commerce that's happening. So what a brand fought for, the big, large companies had the dominance and you had the retail networks. The number of smaller startup brands which are emerging, they have the same kind of supply chains, they have ability to package, and the difference is in the storytelling that they're doing, and there's a connect to consumers which has gotten enabled. That's the fascinating world that we are living in right now. And that, to me, is going to be one of the biggest promises. So if India is to move from our current 4.2 trillion thereabouts, say the next 8 years, 9 years, to doubling this GDP. That is where, because we've already entering the first phase of the consumption economy. So don't feel that because you're B2B, you should not get into digital, as it were. That's why the immersion is immerse yourself into digital media, just as probably 60 crore have immersed themselves at the Kumbh a couple of weeks back. Yeah.
I just have something to add to that. So the beauty of digital, I've been running a digital company for the last about 18 years now, is you don't need a larger budget in hand. That you don't need a larger budget at hand. Digital is as flexible as, just to give you a small example, you can run a small campaign on Meta with as small as 500 rupees. And it can go to crores as well. To run a campaign on Google, you can spend as low as say 200 rupees, 2,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees. So that you can, the platforms itself provide you guys a lot of test and learn ability for you to test, spend slight bit of money, see what kind of changes to be done and what is the expected outcome out of that, and then accordingly scale. So just to add on to Neeraj's point, there is a lot of experimentative that digital itself provide, and the platforms itself are so evolved that you don't need a specific person per se to start the campaign. Probably once you want to scale it, then definitely you might need a specialist. But at least to start the campaign, there could be enough experiments that can be done within your team itself.
One of the things that maybe most of you have not thought about is what is media, what is entertainment, what is gaming, what are movies and television have to do with your business? And the answer lies here. Unlike 10 or 20 years ago, every single one of you will require the power of imagery and you will require the power of simulation. And whether you talk animation or games or anything, it is a method of creating a cocktail between imagery and simulation that is applied to a particular storytelling use. And I have a belief, I'm a great believer in AI and everything else that's been said on this stage for 2 days, but I can tell you something, that in my lifetime, technology never invented anything. Anything that was invented by the power of ideas, and people found the tools and technology of the time in order to bring those ideas into the kind of applications and the kind of methods that we use for storytelling, which changes every 10 years, or then 5 years, then 6 months, and it will change even further. And you've seen that just in the journey that all of us have been through just in the last 10 years, that the things we did 10 years ago is now completely different. But it's the power of ideas. It's the idea that you had to appeal to a market, whether it's an enterprise customer or a consumer. I think the power of ideas is dominant. So on that note, Neeraj, how do you see the industries keeping pace with how quickly consumer tastes change? What's the way forward? Some of the things that we do are very capex heavy. By the time you don't finish 2 years, you need to refresh it again. How do people who are starting up today look at this, and what should they be doing?
Sure. So again, Biren, all the points you make are valid. I'm just trying to sort of see how, as simple a way for me to explain this. See, at one level, things haven't changed, despite all the sort of geeky words and terminology that we may turn around and say. Because the core power of, on the one side, there is an audience, okay? That audience was there in front in the morning in a newspaper, was there on a radio, on a drive. The audience was there on television, in homes, in bedrooms and in living rooms during certain times. That audience now has a always on screen. And with the added component, as we are giving more access to our data and our habits, and it's drawing connect, that screen and whoever is enabling that at that moment for you is in a way getting into a predictive zone. Now, I don't mean to make this sound geeky, I mean spooky as it were, but it's aiding in that entire component. The format of content that you engaged with has changed very dramatically, and you are beginning to see big shifts. Like there is a generation who are not necessarily going to go to theaters at all. They're just not going to go to theaters because their need for entertainment is being met by, something you spoke about, gaming. And we can talk so much about, because there's gaming itself, you have 4 levels of gaming, and that's a vast movement. But whilst that's been happening last 10 years, I also anticipate the next 10 years, the world of cinema and gaming are also going to come together. Because at the end of the day, it's the same technology, the same Unreal and Unity, the worlds you and I have been familiar with, who were creating the worlds of the Marvel and the Disneys, are also creating the worlds of, the BGMI and the gaming worlds, etc. that are happening. So the time spent in that environment. The last part is that till now, media and content engagement, you had it, you created a brand, or you created awareness, you sort of brought about curiosity. In the digital world, it's instant. You can create that. You can now, with the artificial intelligence insight, you can trigger that spike, that adrenaline to make a purchase, like I said, even at 1 in the morning, which you would not ordinarily do. And therefore, you will lead to commerce and transaction as well. And therefore, every business needs to understand that change, because your consumer's pocket is up for grabs 24/7, 365 days. It's a function of how you will do it in the most ethical manner, in a manner whereby you're still building on relationships and loyalty and rewarding all of that. That's where this is changing.
I want to ask you a question that we're talking of brand building and DhandaFirst.
Yes.
So on the one hand, whoever is coming into the market needs to build trust.
Yes.
And that trust is built by the way that you bring the brand personality. They see you as the brand and what you stand for, the culture of your company, the way you engage with them, right?
Yes.
On the other hand, DhandaFirst means that you also need to have communications, which is a call to action.
Absolutely.
Exactly in the way that Neeraj just spoke about it.
Yeah.
So these two are quite different objectives. How would you work with your clients in order to help them, A, to create this whole idea of you can trust me, and the other is, if you don't get your pizza in 5 minutes, I'll give you your money back. I think the two are very different from each other.
Yeah.
And can you go from one to the other, or do both need to coexist, and how will a startup be able to look at that?
Yeah. I think I will start with the core point of the product itself, right? Good marketing cannot sell a wrong product, right? So I think one of the first things that you also spoke about is how do you get the product right? Is the product really able to build that trust? Putting comms and business together, I feel that it's a very simple way of doing it. For example, internally at Havas, we have a solution called the Converged, where it maps right from creating the communication. It's also an AI-based solution where probably right from communication to understanding the audience, users, segments, to running campaigns, to getting measurement framework, everything across. So I feel that product has to be great. Second, the product has to deliver the right value to the audiences as well. It could be as small as understanding how to create good notifications, right? Something like what probably your Swiggy's and Zomatos are doing as of now. How do you take that brand, the trust, and the product delivery right to the audience as well, right? That probably is the second part. The third part is also how do you also learn and unlearn some of the things that you have done. Comms and business, I believe that because in digital you have the power to constantly churn ideas. You can create 10 ideas, run the campaign, see how it's performing, go back and tweak some of them, basis the data and basis the understanding. For example, if I'm creating 5 communications, I can know that if that 5 communication is really leading to a user spending time on my website or on my app, and is it really converting into a customer, and in turn driving a ROAS, which is return on ad spend, right? So the good part is, since you're able to track all of those things, if we are able to understand what kind of consumers require what kind of communication in what kind of platforms, create those platforms, probably create those communication, run the campaign, measure it, probably go back and re-optimize it. That's the way that I would probably recommend all the startups to actually get into this space. of comms and on DhandaFirst as well.
Question for both of you, which is, I think, very topical for everyone in the audience, is the understanding of data, how they collect it, how they mine it, and how they apply it in their business. For example, we create 10 to 15 big movies for Hollywood. We're not allowed to use AI for any single thing that we do because they're worried that the lake from which we have taken that data might have some copyright issues, and we are working with the MPA to figure out how that should change. On the other hand, if we work with brands, say we're doing, and we have done, say a Coca-Cola commercial for the Middle East for Ramadan, for example, they're not worried about the IP. The commercial is not, that Coke ad is not a IP for them. So whether we create the story with AI iterations or we create the character or whatever, it's of no consequence because it's almost a consumable product, right? This Ramadan is there and then it's gone forever. It might win some ads after that, awards after that. So we are, for example, very, very strong on creatures. So we've understood the underlying method, and our IP is how to create a creature for Jungle Book and Lion King and so on. The end creature, that lion belongs to Disney or that creature belongs to somebody else. So I think similarly, there are applications where people today are starting many companies and don't realize, to the point you made earlier, what they should capture as data and how that itself can become a very, very key thing. Do you have advice for that, Neeraj?
Yeah, again, a 15-second comment on what you referenced with Hollywood and whatever. And having spent over 2 decades in that industry, I feel the manner in which Hollywood's handling that is almost anal, okay? And I disagree that Coca-Cola is not sort of, doesn't see that as IP. I think brands equally, Biren, and I know that's not what you implied, but see all of these things as IP in their own way. But to your question on data, it's an extremely relevant thing. So when I said, content, community, commerce, at the center of it, from your content to your community, comes insights, which is really data, etc. And the big trend that we are seeing is more and more entities looking at being able to create first-party data, which comes with requisite consent, which comes with the... So there are 3 big things that are happening. At one level, you've got regulatory frameworks, which are sort of, big tech companies like Google, Meta, and Shibu will be able to add more value to this, have moved away from this whole sort of cookie-driven era, and that's coming to an end, to more and more potentially brands wanting to get to first party. Because with that first party, it's only with that your community gets revitalized. It is in the community that the core storytelling of your brand continues to happen, whether you're doing it yourself, through influencers, through a range of this. And the data will then help you at the right time to trigger the commerce, in a manner which is benefiting to the consumer. At the end of the day, you cannot force purchases, but you should be able to get purchases at the right time in building it out. And that really stems from this year. So my thoughts.
I think the primary point is consent, right? I think that's one thing that I think all brands should really be concerned about. How do you collect this data? And the second bit, and probably I think in India we don't have, probably we don't end up reading privacy policies, right? I think nobody does, right? We just do click, click, click. I think that also opens up a window to a lot of data collectors to abuse the data in whatever way possible. And that's why first-party data becomes very critical to brands. People who have come to the website have given the consent of the brand being able to collect the right information, whether it is PII, non-PII. And the biggest point out there is how do brands use this data in the most ethical way is the most critical thing. As brands, as data custodians, the usage of that data has to be in a more ethical way, limited to marketing, not for any third-party sales perspective. That is where I would draw the line, and that would be my advice also. Neeraj, if you want to add that.
I just want to share a little, like an anecdote, and we're conscious of time, but India, if you see, has actually been phenomenally successful the last 15 years with this whole concept. How many of you are familiar with something called as the India stack, right? which is, we started with identity, which was with Aadhaar. Then you put payments, NPCI, which has been a global super success. Now we are adding on to that like commerce and ONDC, and everything's being looked at like that. So in some of my interactions with the government now, they've started AI mission as well. I gave them a thought. I started by asking them a question. I said, have you seen a Marvel movie? So they said, yeah. I said, have you seen the last one, whatever, Endgame and all? I said, are you familiar with the Thanos effect? So that's where, it got a little geeky. I said, no, let me explain it. It was, he did this and it disappeared. For me, the utopian sense of data would be, today, data is predominantly, the custodians are the big tech companies, right? And there is this struggle between governments and this to disintermediate that, democratize it. What if we were in a world where, let's say I'm going to Amazon, they have my all data, let them have access to my rideshare data, my banking data, this, whatever. But they can use that data for those 10 minutes of transaction that I have. After which, poof, that data is gone. If that is the world that we can lead to, you are potentially building the most democratic way by which consumer benefits, institutions don't take advantage or whatever. So I just thought, just to tickle an imagination and for you guys to think in that manner.
So we're kind of coming to the end of our allotted time, but I think the takeaways are amazing. We're looking at a world where basically technology needs practitioners in communication, right? As much as, more so than practitioners need technology, because you'll always find that. And just to the last few points that were made by my esteemed panelists, things like blockchain help in that area, right? So blockchain helps a lot in that area because you're looking at traceability, you're looking at the whole story, and the India stack has really given the world.
Only thing blockchain has to reflect to 16.3 billion transactions of UPI that happen per month. So there's still a little bit of struggle.
It'll happen. Quantum is coming. The Chinese released the DeepSeek people released a quantum algorithm yesterday. Technically, that should happen with that, but we'll wait and watch. I think the one very important thing that I was thinking about looking at all of you and looking at the last 2 days is this. Many of you, both as investors and many of you as investees, are seeing that when you start your business, right, and this has happened to all of our businesses, that sometimes in 6 months or sometimes in 3 years, as the world changes, as consumers change and technology changes, you pivot. And when you pivot, the communication that you did for your old model is now to be changed to the new model. But the underlying trust and the underlying brand that you have built for your company and for who you are and the way in which your value system prevails, I think that is a very important part. So when we say Dhanda first, in that next phase, the communication becomes the way for you to get your Dhanda first because your model has not been established. Your new product or service has not been established. I think one of the takeaways for you guys here is that you must think about building a brand. I work, in a company we have the Dells and the Autodesk and Isilon and NVIDIA, and everyone is part of the partner ecosystem that actually helps to build our story. And when I look at these phenomenal companies, and as people that create communications, they're fantastic at what they do, but most people in the technology world aren't outstanding at communication. So when I see people who are showing me a data center, it's always boxes with wires at the back. I can't distinguish one from the other. And I think, therefore, the whole idea of what we're talking about today is that when you communicate anything, including a box with wires at the back, is it hitting arrow to the head and the heart of the person, whether it's an enterprise you're dealing with or whether it's a consumer you're dealing with? I think there is a way for you to build a premium to what you do, which is actually measurable today in a world of digital, that can tell you how you're mining the hearts and heads of your consumers or your enterprise clients. And I think if that's the takeaway from today's panel, then that would be fantastic. We probably don't have time except for one question. If you can ask it in 10 seconds, otherwise I will have to use my prerogative. So anyone has one question? Yes, sir. Can we get the mic to you? And if it's a question, please ask it, because someone's catching a train, someone's catching a plane, and someone's catching nothing. Except insights.
So very quick question. Content is king, and it has been and it will remain because the story also has an emotion. Now, when we look at the AI tools that are coming in, a lot of content is being created in terms of imagery, in terms of scripts, and also in terms of videos and characters that are done. So how do you look ahead when brands are trying to be unique and also from the cost perspective where they're trying to use AI tools?
Thank you.
So how do you get a balance on that?
Thank you. You want to take a crack at it?
Just a quick one. Very valid observation. My quick response to you is very early days. So view these only as pointers. Most of us are not yet sort of gone what you would call as all in an AI-driven storytelling world. But it's leading to triggering ideas and thoughts that you can build upon. Having said that, the pace at which it's changing, my sense is a year from now, you will have a lot more sort of emotion, components, etc., beginning to come around. The second part is even receptiveness from consumers. If you see what kind of videos that are being generated, you can feel it's AI-driven. You feel a certain alienness to it. So utilize it in a limited manner, but it's the insights of AI and the engagement with consumers that is at the moment the more of the superpower for you. Yeah. Thank you.
And just to add on to that, see, AI is something that it keeps learning. So, utilize some of those, probably use man plus or human plus machine kind of a model, A. And second is start giving the insights back to the AI for it to generate better output from next time onwards. But it will always be a human plus machine is what I feel.
One of the things that we look at, if you look at how a single frame of any image is created in the world of movies, television, games, etc. at the high end, you will find there are 14 skill sets in each frame. Some are akin to, making it simple, some are akin to painting, some are akin to sculpting, some are akin to math, anatomy, etc., lighting, and so on. Now, in each of these areas, there is people who are working on AI in some of these areas. So you will see that by the alliance that you create in the way that stories will be created and told in the future, you will work with that ecosystem in order to create efficiencies. It will not replace the human artist, but it will actually do a lot of the mundane work, and the finishing will actually happen with human intervention. So I think that's the future that we are talking about, and there's no solution yet, but there will be AI in creativity, AI in production management, AI in human resource management, and AI in operations management, and this will creep into a final story that will be fantastic for all. So hopefully everybody here will figure out how communications can be your tool for DhandaFirst, and can we have a big hand for the panelists this afternoon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our panelists a louder round of applause for that very interesting and thought-provoking discussion. Gentlemen, please stay on stage. I'd like to request Mr. Parag Shah, Board Member TiE Mumbai, to please join us on stage and present our panelists with a token of thanks. Let's give Mr. Shah a round of applause to welcome him to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. Big thank you to our moderator for this panel discussion, Mr. Biren Ghose, Managing Director at Technicolor Group. And thank you to Mr. Neeraj Roy, Managing Director at Hungama. And of course, a big thank you to Mr. Shibu, Shivanandan, Founder and Managing Director at PivotRoots, a Havas company. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for that very insightful discussion on the future of content and brand building. Let's give them one more round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again. And thank you, Mr. Shah. Ladies and gentlemen, before we welcome our next speaker, I would like to announce that we have a community catch-up happening for product folks at room 205A, which is starting at 5 p.m. So please keep that in mind.